Hey everyone, welcome to your lesson on alternate energy sources. So last lesson was on climate change and the greenhouse effect and global warming, and now we're going to talk about some alternate energy sources. Based on the fact that fossil fuels are where we currently get most of our energy from. And since fossil fuels can cause so many problems, and since they're non-renewable, we need to find other forms of energy. And the kinds that we'll be going over today are nuclear, solar, wind, tidal, hydroelectric, and geothermal. So starting with nuclear power is energy from fission. And a reminder of fission from when we studied astronomy is fission is the breaking apart of uranium-235 atoms. The heat from the fission is used to make steam, and then the steam is what turns the turbine, and that's what creates electricity. Advantages to nuclear are that it's cheap, it produces a ton of energy. Disadvantages is that it's high cost to build safe facilities, and then you've got waste from nuclear facilities that's hazardous. There's high levels of radiation, so in order for it to not be dangerous, it needs to be stored properly. This map shows the locations of areas in the United States that are using nuclear energy. So how nuclear energy is produced, this is really cool. So first, uranium is mined, that's in the western United States, and then the U-235, that's an isotope of uranium. It means it's an atom of uranium that has a different amount of neutrons in the nucleus. That's what makes isotopes. So the U-235 is extracted from the rock, and then fission generator generates heat in a reactor. So breaking it apart, breaking that U-235 atom apart, generates heat in a reactor. The heat is used to boil water into steam. The steam turns huge turbine blades, so the steam is very powerful enough to turn blades. And then as the blades turn, the drive generates generators that make electricity. All right, the next kind, solar power. Solar power is energy from the sun. And energy from the sun is collected in a solar collector, which is a black box with a clear top on the roof of a house, and it lets solar energy in and traps the heat for hot air or water. A solar cell is like a little thin wafer of silicon and germanium, and that converts solar energy into electricity. That's like lights, calculators. You can see solar cells in the calculators that have the little calculators we have in class are solar. Advantages, fuel's free if it's used directly, and it's non-polluting. Disadvantages, the sun's not always out, number one, and number two, it's expensive equipment. This is a house with solar panels. Those are the black boxes, the thin black boxes with the clear coating, the clear covering that traps the solar heat. Next kind is wind. Wind is energy from the wind. And aerogenerators are like a set of helicopter blades that are attached to an electronic generator. And when the wind blows, electricity is made. Advantages to wind power is fuel is free, just like solar. And it's good for coastal areas and islands because it's very windy because of the different temperatures between the day and the night. Remember the land sea breeze? Disadvantages is it creates noise pollution. They're pretty loud. And you need a lot of land, which is expensive. So here's a couple diagrams, a diagram and then a picture. So you see how big they are. You need a lot of land in order to put these up. And then this left diagram is a picture of the inside of a wind turbine. You can see what's going on inside of it. The gearbox, the two different shafts, the rotor hub, and then the generator and the brakes. Tidal power is harnessed by constructing a dam across the mouth of a bay or an estuary in a coastal area, and the strong in and out flow of the tide drives turbines and electrical generators. So I'd like to point out that so far, most of these kinds, with the exception of a couple, have used turbines, some kind of steam or water, some kind of flow that turns the turbine, and the turning of the turbine is what generates electricity. So there is a comparison between a lot of these types, even though there's a comparison between a lot of these types, even though the source is very different. So the advantages of tidal power, the fuel is free, and there's abundance of it in areas that have access to tidal water, so pretty much anywhere on a coast. Disadvantages, though, because it's not just anywhere on a coast, you need an enclosed bay to build the dam. So you need to have a bay or an estuary, and so that really limits the amount of locations that you can take advantage of tidal power. So here's a diagram of tidal power. You've got the tide coming in, and the tide comes in and out again, and then those turbines are turned and driven by the power of the sea in both directions, which creates electricity, creates energy. All right, and the last is hydroelectric power. Oh no, we've got one more. Hydroelectric power, hydro is water, and hydroelectric power is produced from falling water, again, that turns a turbine. And dams control the flow of the water with this kind of power. Advantages, fuel is free, water is renewable. Disadvantages, dams have finite lifetimes, which means they don't last forever. And that's because of the sediment deposits in reservoirs. Disadvantages also, there's a lack of suitable sites. So you need a really large river in order to be able to have a dam that is going to be suitable to produce hydroelectric power. So take a look at this diagram for just a minute. You've got a reservoir of water up at the left side. You've got an intake where water's coming in. Water comes in a controlled way. It turns a turbine, which creates electricity to store in the generator. So this is also just like a lot of the other types, as far as you're using some kind of something, and in this case it's the water, to turn the turbine to push power to the generator. This is a huge hydroelectric dam operation, and this is what they look like. They're so big. So imagine some of the advantages and disadvantages of this. What did this area look like before this dam was in place? Geo, the last kind, geothermal power. So geo means earth and thermal means heat. So this is heat from the earth. And the heat from the earth for this kind comes from heat energy from magma, which is stored underneath the earth, underneath the crust of the earth, the surface. So the source for this type of energy is natural underground reservoirs of steam and hot water that's used to turn the turbines to make electric power. So the magma heats up underground water and actually creates steam, and that steam is what's used to turn the turbines. Advantages, it's not a very big environmental impact. It produces very clean energy, but disadvantages is only good for places that have magma near the surface. So like Hawaii and Iceland, you have to drill every 10 to 15 years for new geothermal wells, so new areas that have that water, because it's like any other well, it will run out as you use it. So while geothermal is really great, there are only a few places on Earth because of the location of the magma to the surface. And here is a picture of geothermal, and you've got dry steam and you've got water, and the hot steam and the water are what turn the turbines to send the energy to the generator to produce electricity. So this looks like a lot of pollution. It's actually steam. That's the byproduct of geothermal. So that's hot steam going out into the atmosphere.